Hello everyone, it's Melanie here with Vintage Hill Studio. I'm so glad you dropped by today. I'll be presenting this fun Howdy Texas card. Howdy is in how do you do, but in Texan it's just howdy. Here's what it looks like. I'll be using some cute papers from this travel paper pack. It'll show this printed paper as well as craft cardstock. So let's get started. I found these Deadbeat Designs rubber stamps at a arts and crafts fair, and I'll be using these inks and this embossing powder. So we're going to do a few tricks of the trade today. I'll also be using these clear stamps. One clear stamp for a sentiment on the inside of my card, these two sets of dies, and here we go. So my Martha Stewart scoring board is so valuable to me, especially for making your own cards. My mat you can see is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and then my card base will be 7 inches by 10 inches, and I'm going to score that at a 5-inch mark. This will make a landscape style card that will be a total of 5 inches by 7 inches. I'll match up my corners and then take my bone folder to reinforce that score line, giving me a nice landscape card. Okay, I will bring over that designer paper that's going to go right on top, and then I'm going to get started with my stamps. So how y'all doing? Similar to what Joey says on Friends, how you doing? How you doing? Except this is how y'all doing. Of course, I'm not the grammar police, but how are y'all doing would be better. But it's how y'all doing, so we'll go with that. Now this is the Versamark ink. This is a clear ink. Since this is rather a large stamp, I prefer to flip it over and stamp from the back side like this. Versamark is clear but sticky. I can see I've covered my stamp by just holding it up to the light. You can see a little bit of sheen. This will give a tone-on-tone stamped effect, so you'll be able to see a light transfer from the rubber stamp to my craft cardstock. Looks like I have a pretty good impression there. Next, I'll bring over my coffee filter because I am going to use my embossing powder here just to cover that sticky ink. Get that all over my image, give it a little tap to get rid of some excess, and I can see that I've missed a little spot there on the top left little arm of the state of Texas, so I'll just take a little more embossing powder and done. Alright, so the filter comes in handy because all I have to do is give it a little fold there and get that put back into my container. I try to make sure I get all that done before I bring over my heat tool, which will blow stuff around everywhere, and I don't need my powder all over my desktop here. So I'm sorry I wasn't in frame too much here. I'm going to take my heat tool and give that a good going over. It will start to melt that embossing powder, and you'll see the finished image here in just 1 second. So here's a little trivia on Texas. We became a state on December 29th, 1845. Texas has 254 counties and covers 268,596 square miles. That's both land and water. There's your trivia. So you can see I hand cut, just fussy cut the state of Texas. I popped that up on a little foam tape, and I have my sentiment all adhered on the front. I'll go into a little more detail on what I did here on the inside. So you can see I'm going to be working on my handy dandy silicone mat. That is a microwave mat that I found at a big box store in the kitchen section. Works great for tape runner, liquid adhesive, anything, hot glue. It will roll right off of there if you happen to get some on your mat. But it sure does help keep your work area nice and tidy. Okay, you can see I've inked around the perimeter of that inside mat, which is the same thing I did on the outside of my card and around my sentiments. So off camera I've stamped the inside sentiment, and again that was from the Sizzix Baroque dies. I have all the information about the supplies on my blog, so I encourage you to come visit me at Vintage Hill Studio on my card blog. So the way I went around the edges is with just a little ink dauber, and this is the Distress ink and walnut stain. Just lightly going around the edges which will make it stand out nicely from that printed designer paper. And the other thing that going around the edge will do is that it's going to make that outer sentiment look like it's actually recessed into the designer paper, which it is not. As you can see, I'm adhering it right over the top, but it gives the illusion of being recessed into the designer paper. So I will get this adhered to the inside of my card, and this is where my little score guide below me, my work surface, comes in so handy, because I can set that across the 7-inch mark and see that if I line that up at 3.5 inches, I've perfectly centered my sentiment. And that's it, folks. That's my How Y'all Doing Texas card for the day. The Deadbeat Designs rubber stamps are just beautiful. I mean, it has so much detail to that. Of course, my finished envelope, I like to add a little detail on the back flap and the front and line the inside. And if you'd like to see how to make my easy peasy envelopes, come over to my YouTube channel and check out some of those lined envelopes. No dies or special measurements needed. I'm so glad you dropped by today. I hope you will feel free to subscribe. Go visit me on my card blog as well. And I hope to see you again real soon. Happy crafting, everyone.